Life after the military as a 25-year-old with PTSD. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the more sensitive things. The first question that I did get was about how I got my PTSD. And I know growing up, I always thought PTSD was, for the 20 years I served in Iraq and my buddy next to me died right in front of me. As I learned, there's many different situations and those trigger events that can cause PTSD for people. So I will just be talking about my personal story with it. And again, if you have any more specific questions, you've been through it and have advice, anything like that, feel free to comment or message me directly, anything. So I won't go into super details, but I will give the general trigger warning of MST, which is military sexual trauma, and sexual assault, because that's basically just what that is. So in my experience, this was actually in ROTC. So I wasn't, active duty yet, but I was sworn in, signed my contract and everything. And the person who did it had been a close friend, was also in Army ROTC. And I have lots of regrets because I was young. I didn't really know. I wasn't really educated on what exactly sexual assault is. So I was thinking, I was the classic, oh, this isn't that, surely I must have done something to make him think that he could just do that. And the worst part is I had the freeze response, so I wasn't, pushing him off, whatever. So as far as I know, he's still in the Army. There was a lot that went on with that situation that, kept me quiet. He would threaten to kill himself and all of that, which was all just lies to have me shut up about it and think it was all my fault. So that's the general idea of my situation. And at the time, there was underlining of PTSD, but I didn't have the active symptoms and, panic attacks and all that until I went on deployment. So, like I said, I'm air defense. I went on deployment to Saudi Arabia, and I had a great crew, a great unit, great leadership, but the nature of air defense is that they're pretty much all men. My crew, all males. I was the only woman that was on a crew. There were a couple others in the unit, but they were, supply, S6, things like that. So, when we would be doing our 24-hour shifts, it would just be me, with the crew. For sometimes we did have a medic that was a woman as well. Where all the action is and where I needed to be is the site OIC. All men, which again, it's obviously nothing personal. I was blessed to have a good crew, but I felt isolated. I would try to, be friendly, but at the same time, that part of my head is thinking, okay, well, these are all men. The person that did that to you was your friend, so, these people, you're not even, friends with them, you know what I mean? And it's a very vulnerable position. And when things were getting really bad, at the very end, my commander, gave me the key to use his little, office thing on site, so if I needed to sleep, that was, a door I could lock. But then I felt too far away from what's happening on site. So as the site OIC, the site is my responsibility. So if anything goes wrong, they're going to be looking for me, they're going to be calling me. So I couldn't sleep even when I was separated from other people, because then I would be having nightmares of okay, I'm just here sleeping, then something's going to happen. So I was a wreck. I couldn't sleep. I wasn't mentally all there. I just felt isolated. I had a great team, but I also felt isolated purely because I'm not a man. That fear factor kept that distance. So when I was off shift, I wouldn't barely leave my room. Barely ever. I would just do grab and goes. I wouldn't eat at the DFAC unless it was all the lieutenants going to eat together, which was a moment of socialization. But it started getting really bad at the end, mid 6 months in, when I had my first panic attack, and then that happened other times also. So a couple of days before my first panic attack, I could feel it in my chest. I felt like my chest was being weighted down and had that pain in my chest. And so earlier that day I went to the medic and was like, hey, this is what I'm feeling, is this normal? And they said, come back tonight if you're still feeling that way. And before it even got to nighttime, I had my first panic attack. At the time, I did not know what that was. I thought I was having a heart attack. My body, I was shaking. I felt like I couldn't move. I felt trapped. I felt like I couldn't, talk. I just kind of conscious, but not at the same time, if that makes sense. So I was rushed off site, and, it's a 20-minute drive to the hospital area on PSAB. So the whole way I was just I'm gonna die. It hurts so bad to breathe. I can barely breathe. when I got there, they did, the test. They did an ultrasound, and one of the doctors there even said, like, oh, are you, like, super stressed? But I was in denial, so I was like, oh no, like, I'm fine. But then it happened again. Again when I was on shift. And mind you, when I'm being rushed off-site, that means another lieutenant that's the site OIC has to either, like, wake up and go to site and lose in on rest time, or go in earlier than they were expecting. It was the guilt from that, feeling useless of, like, I can't even do my job without being rushed off to the hospital. And things got worse, some, like, drastic measures, and I ended up being sent back early. So I did 6 months on deployment, and I was sent back. And I thought when I got back, like, things would go back to normal, surely, right? But it actually got worse, because at PSAB, I had my unit, I had my leadership, I had that accountability. And then when I got back, it was just, okay, I'm by myself in an apartment. I have to, try to keep myself sane and alive, and I couldn't get an appointment for behavioral health until a month later. I didn't have any medication or therapy for that month, and things got really, really bad. I had to use 988, I had to use that. Eventually, I was able to get the behavioral health, like, intro appointment, and now I'm on Lexapro, Trazodone, and take hydroxyzine as the panic attacks come, so I always keep that on me. It can happen anywhere. I was playing a basketball game, and, okay, panic attack. Like, what's the logic of that? I went through 2 sessions of IOP. One was just general for coping skills, and then the second one was specific to other people with sexual trauma, and that was really helpful because this is not easy to talk about naturally. Totally bad. It's no fun to talk to anyone about it. Yeah, so that kind of forced me to talk about it, and it really helps being in that group. So I'm getting out on a med board for the PTSD. They basically said, go get out and get right, I guess. And I was in denial, and I was in denial of that for a good while, and I think it was also hard because I was doing so well in the job. I was getting MQs on my evals, I was getting a lot of praise from other people, from leadership, on, how my briefs went, how I behave as a leader and all this, and I really tried to care about the soldiers and things like that, and then to basically be told, like, yeah, you're not mentally stable enough for this is not fun. But now I'm in the acceptance stage of, okay, my energy, my sleep, my mood, my motivation, everything has gone down since, the panic attacks started happening and things have been bad. I thought it was going to be like, okay, it's bad, and then it's going to be good. But I'm just trying my best to stay sane and do better. Okay, bye.